I know.
Are you nervous?
Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Lewisville Independent School District into order. We have established a quorum. We have Ms. Fowdy absent tonight. But I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting has been duly called, and the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, and 082. And the time is 6:04. Just give us a minute, folks. We have a little electronic difficulties. All right, we're going to start. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the September 10th, 2012 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for Lewisville Independent School District. The time is 7:07, and we will now reconvene into open session. Would you please all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Well, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone has had a great start of the new school year. We would need to consider items discussed in closed session. I need a motion.
I move that all personnel recommendations be approved as presented by administration.
I have a motion, Ms. Latham. I have a second, Ms. Sheffield. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on to awards, recognitions, and presentations. McCamey Middle School Destination Imagination Team. Is Ms. Napier here? Oh, there she is. Look at them. That's what all the jingling noise was.
Did that do it? Okay, great. Good evening. Destination Imagination is an international educational program that teaches students to be creative problem solvers. Through small teams managed by parent volunteers, they draw on what they've learned in school, their own research, and what they learn in life to develop innovative solutions to complex problems. Teamwork, creativity, and critical thinking are the keys to success in DI as they are in life. The students being recognized are from McCamey Middle School. They won first place last year at the Regional DI Tournament in February, and then third place at the Texas DI Affiliate Tournament in April, where they competed against 22 other middle school teams from across the state. They capped off the competition year at DI Global Finals, where they took a third place, and they were also awarded the coveted Renaissance Award, which was awarded to them for superiority in execution of the challenge theme of movie trailers for a team-written movie plot. They performed this challenge solution completely in black, gray, and white, representing a black and white movie of the 1930s. The team's name is Area 51. This was their first trip to Globals and their second trip to state. It's the first LISD team to win at the middle school level, and it was our first team to win a special award, which is very cool. Their performance, which I got to watch at all 3 tournaments, was one of the most creative I've ever seen, and after 13 years in DI and over 30 tournaments, I have seen my share of team performances. They are truly exceptional students. Their names are Meredith Carlisle, Casey Castle, Hannah Mulholland, Leah Mulholland, Annie Sharp, and Elizabeth Story. Their team managers are John Carlisle and Christy Castle, who have done an amazing job managing their own work and travel schedules, in addition to the busy schedules of the team members. So please join me in congratulating these students.
Congratulations. Moving on, move on to our public hearing, a 2012 first report. Dr. Burnett.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. As is required by state law, we have a public hearing on the district's financial integrity rating system of Texas. This has been posted on the web. We've advertised it in the newspaper, so this is time to hear any public comment about our first report.
If there's anyone present who would like to speak during this public hearing, please come forward at this time. Anyone? Okay. Please just state your name, please. Sir, this is a public. We do have your card. This is something else. Yeah, you'll be just a second. Is there no one else? Okay, so I'll now close the public hearing. Thank you all very much. I think that's all we have to do. Moving on. Your request to the address of the board. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. I have two. prior to the meeting. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes, and the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. Best saying, Mr. Hitt, would you like to please come to, and you have 3 minutes to address the board, sir.
So the reason why I'm addressing you today is because of something that recently came to light, which I've brought to superintendent's notice. But why I'm here today is to talk to you about that in Flower Mound we've recently discovered that students from Lewisville are being bused in to Flower Mound schools because of failure of state mandates. This is something that really concerns us. Most of us that moved to Flower Mound did so specifically for the schools, giving up many other things and paying quite a bit to move there so we could have dreams of our kids having better schools than most of us did. We see that while Lewisville has their problems and that they failed in some degrees and that they do need to have those schools, kids going to schools that are adequate as dictated by the state, we don't feel that they should be Flower Mound's problem. That it is you as educators that need to come up with a solution. And we feel that you failed as educators to do that for the city of Lewisville, and that for Flower Mound is not the solution. We ask that while you have to dictate and go by state mandates, that you find a better solution, however that needs to be, but that we feel that you are not teaching the kids of Lewisville the right thing, that by not achieving these state standards, they get to go to other schools instead of putting it on them and their responsibility. We feel that, while, again, we feel that maybe you failed Lewisville in that regard. We hope that you don't fail Lewisville ISD as a whole over, specifically with Flower Mound, and that you take this into consideration and you find a better solution than to just truck them over to another school district, or not school district, but another city. We understand we're all parents and we want the best for all kids, not just the ones in our city, but we don't feel that it should be the responsibility of another city to take care of another city's problems because the educators did not bring those kids up to the state level. Thank you for your time.
Moving on. The other card I have is from Ms. Chris Bond.
Kidding. I'm Chris Vaughn, the PTSA president from Flower Mound High School, and I have some exciting things to tell you, and I wanted you to be aware of that we're doing with the PTSA, and hopefully we can spread it out throughout the district. But first I want to give you some serious statistics about texting while driving, and then I'll tell you what our PTSA is doing to educate the community about it. More than 100,000 crashes a year involve drivers who are texting, causing life-changing injuries and deaths. Teens know that texting while driving is dangerous. As a matter of fact, 97% say it's dangerous, but 43% admit that they still do it. This one is very striking to all of us in the room here. 70% of teens have seen their parents texting while driving. And then 75% say it's common among their friends. So drivers who are texting, they're 23 times more likely to be in an accident. And we all know, I mean, who's going to say that this is a bad thing to like promote not texting and driving? And you think that you can just quickly do it and it won't make a difference, or you're going slow or you're at a stop sign. But Flower Mound PTSA wants to really plug this all year long. And we did some research over the summer of all these different options with nonprofits and all these different websites. And for this fall, we're going to kick it off with AT&T's It Can Wait campaign. And they actually have a pledge day next Wednesday, September 19th. It's National Pledge Day. And I would just ask you personally if you could consider pledging yourself not to text and drive, and also talk to your family members and your friends. There's a form out there on the website, itcanwait.org, and there's actually a form for parent and teens to pledge together and teens to teens. and then you can individually pledge online. But we're going to have a big kickoff at the high school next week during cafeteria time at lunch. We're going to have tables for the kids to sign up, and we have student representatives on our board that are going to be involved and help us promote. So really all I'm just asking from you is just your support personally, and I'm going to be contacting the other schools, other high schools. I'm going to encourage them to get involved. I've already met with the feeder schools for Flower Mound, with the elementary and middle school, and we're going to work together so they can educate the parents. Is that for me to stop? That little beep? Oh, okay. So we can educate the parents so that they will stop texting and their kids won't see them before they start their own driving. And really the main thing that I want to do, and we at Flower Mound PTSA want to do, is just to make our community a safer place if we're all more conscious of not texting and driving. There are applications out there for your phone that you can get and turn it on while you're driving, and then a text goes back to your person that sent it to you that says, I'm not safe right now, I'm driving, I'll get back to you later. We're going to promote this all year long, have newsletter articles and everything. So just appreciate your service to our community, and I'll email you tomorrow with the website so you don't forget.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on. Oh, the informational items. Before we advance, I just want to take one moment for everybody to notice that, well, actually, the school board members have noticed that on the, for each of the informational discussion and action items, we now have, following each number, what strategic design goal this supports. So you'll notice that. So we're carrying forward with making sure that it's kept in the forefront, and we acknowledge, you know, what our goals are continuously, so we can see that we're meeting our goals or working towards our goals. So, thus being said, informational items. Number 1, district support trips, administrative guidelines. Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Skyer. This is an information item only, so there's no further action needed. Basically, we sought input from a lot of directors and teachers from various groups to try to put into place some guidelines, because this past year, Ms. Maniscalco would continually harass me a little bit and say, hey, are we going to fund this trip or not? And when I asked, well, what type of guidelines are in place, there weren't a lot. And if you see, we had spent 2 years ago $466,000 plus. The next year, last year, about the same amount. And so we felt that it was important to put in place some guidelines to be equitable to all groups, and to make sure that our sponsors understood. We want groups, we believe it's important to enhance their education to go on these types of trips, but we wanted there to be some guidelines. And so all the groups had input into it. Now, you know, but there are some limits. For instance, one of the changes we're recommending or have put in place is that the district will, of course, continue to pay for all UIL activities. That's not a question. All the other type of trips that are either in-state or out-of-state, we looked at a history of what we had been spending per student or per staff for those trips, and then put in a maximum of $300 for in-state, $600 for out-of-state. We believe this will certainly create a cost savings of a substantial amount, and yet be fair to all groups, and that's what our goal was.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to number 2, LISD strategic design. Dr. Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This month, or really the end of August, we started with our coaches in their first part of training to get them ready to do all the great things that we are anticipating for our district. I'd just like to share a couple of those activities. I think the first activity that they participated in was a trip to Fort Worth to the Art Museum, where they conducted a series of activities to get to know each other better as well as begin to look forming at a team. And they also had lunch at Joe T. Garcia's. So they ended the day quite nicely with that. The 24th, they started up with a full-fledged orientation. Dr. Waddell was part of that orientation. And then came the 3-week boot camp. They are in week 2 of their boot camp. They have gone through coaching training. They are doing walkthroughs. They're working on a problem-based learning activity that will be presented to leadership team, plus zone leaders and others on Monday, September 17th in the afternoon. This will be our first chance to see them working as a team on a challenge that Dr. Waddell has issued to them. So the culminating activity from the boot camp is on the 17th. Another activity on strategic design is out of the Public Information Office with Ms. Karen Permetti. This will be the district's first advisory partnership committee, and that meeting takes place in the morning, beginning at 8:30 right here in this room. We're going to use the same process of community and business input that we used with strategic design with the consultant that we used last year, and we'll bring more to you as we develop our community partnership throughout the year. At the very bottom of the items, we have been asked to share with you what goal each of these belong to. So if you can see at the bottom that the Strategic Design Coach's professional learning is an outcome of Goal 2.2, and the project-based learning Goal 6.6, ultimately leading to a portfolio system. The Partnership Advisory Initiative is an outcome of Goal 4.2, developing collaborative partnerships with the community, as well as Goal 5.3, create partnerships with businesses, community organizations, local government, and higher education institutions to prepare students for the future. And that is the report for this month.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to 21st Century Student Solution, Ms. Barbara Brown.
Robin Stout, the library meeting.
I've got a light on. Thank you for the opportunity. As we embark upon the Strategic Design Initiative and are discussing the integrative 9th grade center designs, we found ourselves asking a number of questions about what the media hubs will look like in these new schools. Some of the questions include, what are we doing to meet students' instructional and informational needs? Does every child have a device for accessing digital content? And the most shocking, do we even need books anymore? So, being a librarian, I did some research. I found 2 schools that have been heavily publicized for making radical makeovers of their traditional print-based libraries. The first one is Lamar High School. It is an international baccalaureate high school in Houston ISD. And what the folks at Lamar did was they sent their relevant print nonfiction to various departments within the school to clear some extra space in their library. They kept their print fiction and high interest titles, which ended up cutting their collection approximately in half. Then they went and purchased a fairly large number of both fiction and reference materials in ebooks formats. The learning space that is left in what used to be the traditional library now features a college corner, a help center for the IB exams, a technology integration station for teachers, and a cafe that is staffed before and after school by culinary arts students. The second school I'd like to discuss is the Cushing Academy, and that is in Massachusetts. It's a private school approximately an hour and a half outside of Boston. This school also replaced the majority of their print collection with electronic resources, both ebooks and online databases. They gave laptops to all of the students that are receiving financial aid because they are a private academy. And then they purchased over 200 e-readers to offer to students in the library and circulate to them. The facet of this change that made the news the most often was that they purchased a $12,000 cappuccino machine for their cyber cafe. So pretty much every story that I found about these two renovations included this cappuccino machine. And as a matter of fact, the New York Times Room for Debate editorial blog picked up that story, and they did a spin-off of that story and published an editorial titled "Do School Libraries Need Books?" where they examined that question: do we even need print volumes? And they outlined what happened at this school. There were over 120 student comments to the story, so many that they decided to publish a follow-up article called "The Library Through Students' Eyes." With the exception of one girl who said that the money saved from no longer buying books should go towards prom, the majority of the students said that they preferred a hybrid approach to resources, including both print and digital. Here's an excerpt from student SM. As a student, I prefer to do research online and often use Google Books or something similar when I need to look at a book for a class. Now, when I'm reading for pleasure, I absolutely refuse to give up a real book. So my vote is that schools have extensive digital collections for research and scholarly work and a good selection of interesting and age-appropriate fiction and nonfiction for pleasure reading. I couldn't have said it any better. The research has also supported that assertion that SM made. In a recent study with the creative name of the 2011 Global Student eBook Survey, which was funded by eBrary, an ebook and database company, Dr. Alan McKeel of Western Oregon University polled over 6,000 students worldwide. The majority of these students were from America and the UK. But he found that approximately half of the students preferred print in some context or another. So, keeping in mind the need to support all of the various student learning styles and interests, and realizing that schools that went heavily digital, for example, the Cushing Academy and the school in Lamar High School in Houston ISD, we realized that schools that went heavily digital still made it a point where they were keeping print titles. So there we answer the questions, do students even need print books? I presented my research to Dr. Waddell's leadership team and proposed that the new campus media hubs have areas where print inventory and devices can be stored, similar to those found in airport kiosk bookstores. Advantages to kiosks of this style include that it is not a full-size bookstore. However, it would feature the current bestsellers, the heavily used materials. The area can be secured to protect the inventory after hours. And it is designed to supplement the digital content that would be purchased for the campus, and then also would be backed up by the larger print libraries that already exist at the adjacent high schools. The digital content that would be purchased for the 9th grade centers would also be shared with the adjoining high schools, and so students could benefit from having the best of both worlds. The idea was discussed with PBK, and they were very receptive and came up with several exciting options. To maximize cost effectiveness of maintaining a small, fluid collection, we're also investigating a leasing program offered by one of our district vendors. Leasing is fairly common in public libraries, but is not as well known in the school environment. Some of the advantages of leasing include that it would provide new titles monthly to the schools. It would allow the schools to send back titles as their demand decreases, as opposed to having them sit on the shelf for years after they're no longer popular. And Dr. Burnett's staff is looking at the feasibility of this model because we have current high schools that would like to start that this year. We don't want to just wait until the new campuses are open. With a shift towards more digital content, the 9th grade media hubs may need to provide more devices for student circulation. I cannot accurately predict how many devices we would need at this time. However, due to changes in technology and funding policies, some determining factors would include what funds are available, what devices would best suit our student needs, and how many students would already have devices at each individual campus. While I don't have an answer to the number of devices, I did want to make sure to point out that this is definitely a consideration, that devices would need to be circulated through the library for students that don't already have devices to access the increased amount of digital content. I'd like to conclude with an update on what Library Media Services is doing now to support the strategic design initiative and to prepare our students for futures that they would create. Thanks to the vision of the leadership team, we were able this year to purchase a collection of ebooks for use district-wide, so every student would have access to these titles. The Follett Bookshelf product, which has its accompanying digital reader app for iOS and Android devices, integrates with our current library management software, so the two products work hand in hand. We recently received the core lists from the Follett representative, and the library media specialists at 2 recent zone meetings examined those lists and had input into the titles that they really heavily wanted and then the titles that they felt didn't quite fit our curriculum as well as a core list would. The new budgets because new budgets for this school year have recently been released, we hope to finish up with the lists this week and get the shelves ready for integration next month to roll out to the students. Over the summer, we also upgraded our partner product, which is the Destiny Library Media Services Management software. Some of the great features that came out of this upgrade include the ability to create student accounts using a product called Quest that's already embedded in the software. It also has apps available for both Android and iOS. The students can search their library holdings, the district online databases, and also all of the ebooks in one place on their devices or on any computer with an internet connection. The student accounts also allow students to create lists that they can access later from any computer or through the app. Students can manage their own accounts, they can place items on hold, and they can see what they currently have checked out. The greatest facet of this new Quest account, though, is the ability to use it as a tool to promote digital citizenship with our students. Through this MyQuest, students can friend each other within their schools. They can recommend titles to each other. The high schoolers can tweet and can post titles to their Facebook accounts, as can the teachers. And then recommendations are overseen by the campus library media specialists who can disapprove and delete posts. So they're monitored. They're in a safe, monitored environment. Most importantly, this contained environment facilitates instruction on topics such as password protection, appropriate online conduct, and acceptable and unacceptable vocabulary in posts. The library media specialists were trained on the new features of this program last month. Student and teacher accounts were loaded last week, and we are in the process of rolling that out to our kiddos as we speak. Thank you for your time. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Ruff Misstepped?
I have a comment. I wish they'd have had this when I was in school, and I might not have gotten in so much trouble in the library.
Me too.
Yeah, budget-wise, how does this compare to what we're doing presently?
It can be accomplished in essentially the same budget as far as like the leasing is concerned. Was that the aspect, or was it?
Just the whole overall budget, if we move to this concept, what would be the difference in total amount spent for library services?
We predicted that it would be approximately the same as it is now. I wasn't anticipating an extra expenditure. It would be a reallocation because right now schools are spending primarily for print sources. Ebook prices generally are in about the same price range. And then the leasing program is also approximately the same price range.
Robin, would you mind sending that to Ms. Foudy so she could see that?
Certainly.
So that she can, I know she's sorry that she missed it.
I'm sorry she's not here.
I know. But thank you very much.
Could I make a comment? when Robin showed this to us at leadership team, I was just really impressed. And I thought we just have to show this to you guys and show it to the community. I know there's a couple of members of the strategic design team sitting out there, and I think they would agree with me. This is right in line with some of the things we were talking about. So it's really concrete proof that we're aggressively moving forward with implementing the strategic design. I think it's terribly exciting. I also got in trouble in the library, and I may still have, but I would have been engaged. And I can't say enough about Robin Stout. Ever since I've been here, I've been impressed with her vision and her intelligence and her creativity, and this is just a great example. It's wonderful when you have people like her who are helping, kind of bringing into form the things that we've been talking about doing. She also worked in, when she was doing her conclusion, the vision statement. So I thought that was a nice touch, too. But I just want to commend her for her work, and it's just, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about in terms of our kids. I just think it's so forward-thinking, so I just want to take a moment to say that in public.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for all your hard work. Moving on. Future sale of bonds. Dr. Burnett, I believe. Technology there?
Well, it's probably simpler than I make it. As part of our continuing efforts to keep our facilities, to keep them upgraded, to provide the state-of-the-art facilities for our students, in keeping with our strategic design, as well as keeping our promise to the voters, we have asked Mr. Martin to come and give you an outline of what we think our bond sales could be this year, and more specifically what we might be considering for this fall.
Thank you, Dr. Burnett. I understand in your package you have a proposed schedule of events for what we may be talking about in terms of scheduling for a fall bond sale. Really, this kind of came about as we start looking at where interest rates are, and that's why I provided you the handouts tonight in terms of the bond market update. We continue to hear about interest rates going down. Can they go any further? And they just keep going a little further lower and lower. And the first sheet there is the bond buyers index that we show you all the time. Seems like every time we get ready to sell bonds, this is, like in our business, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. At the close of Thursday each week, there's the same 20 bonds that are revalued and priced, and what would they be worth. So you can see in the far right-hand column, that number at last Thursday's close was 3.73%. These bonds are, in the bond buyers index, are A-rated bonds with an average maturity of 20 years. Lewisville ISD sells AAA-rated PSF-insured bonds most of the time until PSF runs out of money, and then we stand on our own rating, which is a phenomenal AA+, as we all know. So these rates are higher than what you would receive, but the point of this is to show you the overall trend of general market interest rates. Behind that sheet shows you that same chart, but in a cute little graph. Everybody likes cute graphs. So this shows you since January 11th, and you can see the downward trend. And since January, we've really kind of hopped around this year and look to be on another low point here. And there is rumor, as we've probably heard recently, if you've heard the business reports, of the Fed taking more action and getting back into buying more 10-year Treasury bonds. Well, that's going to push rates even lower. It should. Everything that I learned in economics, of course I went to OU, has gone out the window. But so it should lower rates, and we borrow for longer than 10 years, so that will push those longer-term rates. I really don't think that we're going to see much movement in anything between now and 10-year interest rates. behind that sheet then shows you various maturities of the MMD, municipal market data. These are AAA rates showing you 10-year, 20-year, and 30 years. And you can see how these have moved along. And really, the kind of for us, the key rate is that 20-year rate. And so you can see AAA bonds are trading around 2.5%. For 20 years at roughly 2.5%. That's crazy. So who knows who's got a good crystal ball in terms of where rates are going to go after the election? That's kind of the big question mark everybody's thinking about. We do know that we've got the trend lines are right now for us to take advantage. Really in a little bit of a. Did it get darker in here? Okay. Is that sending me a message here? Dr. Gloom. Actually, it's all good news. But so the thought is, in meeting with Dr. Waddell and Dr. Burnett, that we come to you with kind of a two-pronged approach for this fiscal year's building program. And let's try to do like $35 million now and sell in October, deliver funds to you in November, and then maybe another 2/3 or so, $65 million roughly thereabouts, see where the market is, then coming back in the spring. We could do it all and wait in the spring if you desire, but we're thinking that maybe there could be a chance interest rates go up. I don't think if they do go up, they're going to go up much, but there's more of a chance of them going up, I think, than going down, say next April or May. So I think it's a good time for us to borrow money. The supply and demand right now, we hadn't seen a school bond sell all last week, and we don't have any on the calendar this week. So, if that trend continues, we could be the only game in town which economics tells you should push our interest rates lower. So this calendar is set up in terms of overall briefing to where we anticipate doing a competitive sale. Every once in a while, the school district does competitive sales. We do such larger bond issues by comparison that they're usually negotiated sales. Your bonds are in very high demand, very highly rated bonds. Competitive sales are as an internet hard bid. So you set a certain date and time when the bids are due. They come in on the internet, and we bring you the lowest and best bid, and they trickle in 5 to 10 different bids representing probably 60 or 70 different investment banking houses. And that's good to do every once in a while. It's a good practice, and it kind of gives us a better idea and make sure that the underwriting team that we have in place that we've used for many years to do our negotiated sales, make sure that they step up when it's time to do a hard bid too. So kind of keeps them honest, and so I'm all in favor of that. However, we don't want to say for sure until I think we get till another month away when we come to you before the October meeting whether or not we'll do a competitive sale or negotiated sale. I kind of want to see before I don't want to make a hard recommendation right now on that. I'd like for us to do a competitive sale if we can. Leave off anything, Dr. Burnett, or is that too much information?
We anticipate the total, in order to keep our tax rate a year from now in August of 2013, in order to keep that in the area where we told our voters, we anticipate doing approximately $100 million during this fiscal year. We need approximately $70 million in change for the contracts that we expect on the 9th grade centers. The remaining money would be split roughly about 2 to 1, with technology getting the bulk of it, and then our renovation, repairs, and maintenance projects for facility services getting the remainder.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Martin? This being a discussion. Well, actually, it's information, but he's just full of information for us. So if anybody has anything to want to pull out of him,
you can pepper me next month.
we can pepper you next month. Okay, I'll remember that.
Questions,
Everybody bring
sir?
their pepper. Thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion items. Monthly financials, bond report, quarterly investment report, and new construction reports. Dr. Burnett.
These are our monthly items on the finance and the bond reports and the construction, and we also have the quarterly investment report. you have those for you. Note that they are current as of July 31st, except for the investment report, which is current through the end of the fiscal year.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Moving on to the annual review of investment policy, strategic design goal number 7. Dr. Burnett.
This is our second month as a discussion item on this policy, which we told you about last month. And the significant change is we're asking for a policy language that will allow us to do an escrow account for our qualified school bonds or QSCAB bonds, and for the maturity of those bonds, and that allows us to earn interest on that escrow account. That's a longer term than what we ordinarily go. It requires a modification in the policy.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. Okay, so we're talking about establishing an escrow sinking fund, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one of the questions that I had is, who do we expect the trustee of that escrow sinking fund to be?
Teresa, you want to address that? Bank of Texas.
Bank of Texas? Okay. And then the second one I had is, shouldn't we be able to expect a lower, where'd Mr. Martin go? A lower interest rate for having an escrow sinking fund coupled with our particular bond ratings?
The question is, I guess, what kind of interest rate would we expect on a investment like such as this? Would it be lower or higher?
Well, I think historically, those who have the escrow sinking fund and the bond rating that should also help us with our interest rates that we
As I recall,
receive.
the proposal from Bank of Texas is that if they get to keep your money, they're going to charge you next to nothing, or you can pay them a fee for a higher fee and self-direct. So your choice. I don't know that choice has to be made yet or has been made, but we have to establish right now under your investment policy. That's really the first step. So, and then you guys can determine how you want to invest it. But yeah, typically, you can go out individually, buy, from a broker, a repurchase agreement, that sort of thing. I think that's where you're going with it, and get a higher yield.
Right, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Moving on to resolution affirming school districts' eminent domain authority. Dr. Burnett.
As part of the statutory changes from the spring of 2011, the legislature required any governmental entity, cities, counties, school districts who wish to continue utilizing the authority and responsibility and the power of eminent domain to notify the comptroller's office of their intent to do that. We ask our attorney, Bob Luna's office, for recommendation, and you have his letter in his language. You're actually not required to take any action on this. It's just a matter of filling out the forms and sending it back to the comptrollers. But we think it's a good idea to at least go through this and have a discussion about it, and if it's the pleasure of the board, to actually adopt the resolution.
No, it's just discussion. We'll adopt it next month. Does anybody have any questions or concerns regarding this? Seeing none? Okay, move on. Location of athletic facilities at Flower Mound High School, strategic design goal number 1. Dr. Burnett?
We would like to invite Irene with PBK to come up and speak to this. We have asked PBK to do some concept drawings of what the athletic facilities at Flower Mound might look like. As you know, this has been a critical piece that to make the ninth grade centers work, and we have gone through a lot of renditions of what ifs, what scenarios that might work. And PBK has done an excellent job of working with us and getting us a concept of how this might look, subject to further discussion and further refinement.
Thank you, everybody. What we have here today is kind of the finishing touches of the ninth grade centers that we presented last month. It was, as you may recall, we showed you our site and where we're including the ninth grade center. And we talked about the fact that we would be displacing the baseball fields and the tennis courts. There we go. The baseball field and tennis courts in order to build our new building. And the softball field would also be in the way of the new gymnasium and of the new parking areas. So the property that we're going to talk about is just across the street from the high school, across Peters Colony. So again, just to remind you, the ninth grade centers, again, the location of the main building, which is right over where the baseball field and the tennis courts are, and then the gymnasium addition and parking where the softball fields are located. So we're looking at this property, several properties that the district purchased across the street from Peters Colony, so it gets the most immediate access for the students to get across during the day for the activities that they have at the athletic site. And so what we have here is just a very quick concept of what that could look like. We have located access into it from Old Settlers Road, again, being cognizant of traffic issues in Peters Colony and back up. So we've located the access off of Old Settlers Road. Parking areas that could be shared by all three sports. So you'll have your new baseball field with all the batting cages and all the same provisions that are being provided at Marcus and across the district for your standard facilities. Same for the softball field. We have a small concession storage locker building, which could be used by any of the sports, and then the tennis courts closest to the school. We've located the site this way. There's some very large, beautiful trees at the corner here of Peters Colony and Old Settlers, so we're going to maintain those, and that will be the main access for students coming from the campus. They will cross at the street at the intersection where the light is, and then come across, and there'll be a winding road to get them to the complex itself. And then we will be proceeding to meet with the town of Flower Mound to confirm these items with them and make sure that we are able to comply with all their requirements. So that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
There's only one point of egress into the facility?
Right now, we're showing only one in and out for that, and we're showing the number of parkings is approximately 200 parking spaces, which is what's required for in the event that there's a activity at baseball and softball. Again, we're probably going to have a fire loop that goes around, so we might have a paved area that is not to be used every day, but could be used for egress in the case of emergency.
It just seems to me that if you have an event and if you're using 200 parking spots, it's going to be just a nightmare to get out and in onto Old Settlers.
And it might be, again, we're going to be with the town. We're just trying to be cautious to what we bring out into Peters Colony. So again, because there are traffic concerns and a lot of traffic issues along Peters Colony, we could look into two inlet and outlet into Old Settlers, and that might help alleviate that. So that might be something we look at. So I appreciate your comment.
Isn't that a church that's located right by the tennis courts?
There's a church right here.
But, I mean, weren't we talking about doing some, I mean, they have parking there, right? I mean, so wouldn't you technically have two areas of access?
Well, there's other parking over here, and I think part of the deal with the church is that it could be used depending, so that it's not used at the same time as their events are.
Right.
We have had some conversations with the church about doing some shared parking, and we haven't reached any final decisions on that yet.
And will we work with the athletic groups before, in terms of just the drawings, like we've done with the ninth grade centers, will we get input, and is there a plan in place for that?
We're meeting with them Wednesday morning at 10:30 in the morning.
Okay.
So one of my questions was, will we be asking the subject matter experts, the tennis,
Absolutely.
before we start building their facilities? So good question. Another question that I had was, have we had any input from the surrounding neighbors in the area?
Not regarding this, the property, because I think this is the first time that the property is, that we're showing this layout. We can meet, we obviously received some input when we were designing the ninth grade center, so I'm sure we can go back to them and ask them, share this with them as part of a follow-up charrette process, also to let the charrette committee know about everything that has been happening, so.
A good idea, so we don't get backlash later.
Anybody else? Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Moving on to action items. We only have one. Hey, hallelujah. Consider approval of change order to Balfour Beatty Construction Manager at-risk contract for Lewisville High School Auditorium. Dr. Burnett. Oh, I need a motion first to discuss.
I make a motion that we approve.
Motion, Ms. Latham. Second. Second, Ms. Sheffield. Okay, discussion. Dr. Burnett, would you like to say something first?
We had, as you know, we've been working on this for close to about 14 months now, and we're just simply happy that we are at this point and that it's within the price parameters that we had talked about over a year ago, and we're ready to move forward with it so we can get it in, so we can start construction on it as soon as possible and get a deliverable by early fall of next year.
Anybody have any questions, concerns before we vote? Ms. Latham?
I just wanted to point out, I went back and reread my notes, and the cost estimate that we were given was 8.5 to 9 million. So this does come in within that range, but in our notes, we only had. In the notes, it says the original cost estimate of 9 million, but we were actually told that it would be between 8.5 and 9.
Which it is when you take the 2 million that was already in the contract for the work that was originally scheduled for LHS Auditorium.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, there's a motion and a seconded. All in favor? That is unanimous. Going forward on the consent items, are there any that need to be pulled?
Okay, I have a question. Do I need to pull one if I have a question about it? I do, because then we can vote on all of them. Okay. I need to pull 2A.
2A? Okay, so I need a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve all of the consent agenda items with the exception of item 2A.
Motion, Ms. Latham, any second? Second, Mr. McDaniel? Okay, discussion. Or anybody else? Anything else? Okay. All in favor? That is unanimous. And moving on to, I need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve consent agenda item 2A.
Your motion, Ms. Latham. Any a second? Ms. Duke? Okay. Your question, ma'am?
Dr. Riddell, I've had conversations with him. I gave myself a crash course on the JJAEP program. In the agreement, it talks about how the district will not provide transportation to the student unless the student's family does not own a vehicle or have access to a vehicle. And I had a question then, because the Texas code actually in section 37.001 states that if you send a kid to the JJAEP program, the school district does need to provide transportation. So I just want to make sure that we are correct in how we have this agreement worded and we are
covered. Remember this discussion?
I'm going to let Dr. Rogers answer that.
You're right, as far as we do not provide transportation for students to JJAP. The MOU, basically what I did is just compared it to the previous MOU that was approved the last 2 years, and so there were no changes. So I may have to defer to Mr. Ellington as far as the code. You aware of that?
Not to DAEP, but I think we may need to revisit this because section 37.001 is pretty clear. And I have it pulled up if you want me to email it to you, but you can look it up on the state ed. Yeah, it's section K6, but yeah, I'll email it to you. Another question that I had on this was, I know that we were working on, this is probably Mr. Rogers again, we were working on a student code of conduct or a student handbook that was consistent across all of our campuses for like the elementary, the middle, and the high school. Have we completed that?
No, Ms. Latham, that is something that, if you remember, I think a couple of months ago, Ms. Godby and the principal operating procedures, the POPs groups, and we have various groups looking at grading policies and actually are forming a community group to look at dress code across the district. And so that is not completed yet. We are in sort of the middle. Our plan is to have that process completed by the end of this year.
Okay. The reason that I bring that up is in my crash course of the JJAEP program, it was originally started for students who have committed criminal offenses. They've broken the law, not just broke the school rules. And we had some inconsistencies across just because of what they're working on yet, as far as when we sent someone to the JJAEP program. The agreement states that we will pay the JJAP program $89 per day per student that they are there. But in this program, if a student is, let's say they're assigned 30 days to the JJ, that doesn't mean that they're only there 30 days. That means they have to earn a point a day till they total 30. So for instance, if a kid is put through the program and for whatever reason they don't earn a point every day, 30 days in a row, they could be there 60 days, 90 days, 100 days, however long it takes them to earn 30 points. So we're actually paying $89 a day for as long as they are there, which is not a bad thing because they need a little remedial help and they need to stay longer than we originally thought. But we just need to be cognizant that we are not sending, or which the students that we are sending to this program. We don't need to be sending kids that haven't actually broken the law. We don't need them to.
And Ms. Latham, I would say there are really several types of actions. There are discretionary expulsions and mandatory expulsions. Certainly mandatory expulsions are the kind of expulsions that you're talking about.
In the law.
But there are discretionary. If you remember about a year or so ago, we moved away from our zero tolerance, at the recommendation of TASB. And so our numbers sent to JJAP have probably been cut over half, if not a third. You are correct that some of our kids place for 30, 45 days. Certainly take more than 45 days to earn their points, but I would guesstimate that probably 3/4 of our kids make it in the amount of time that they're assigned unless they're absent. Really, over the years, and I've been up there more times than I'd like to admit, but over the years, the JJAP folks, which is run by the juvenile justice system, have always stated the type of kids that we send even to JJ are they're appreciative of the types of kids that go up.
Well, I don't think that I could support this, Ms. Kyer, until we get clarification on that, on what our lawyers think that's in our agreement with Denton County, compared to what's in Texas Code SEC 37.011, Section K6.
I don't think we can, we're asked for approval of memorandum of understanding. I would assume, I don't think I'm wrong on this, that lawyers have looked at that. But nonetheless, you can't adopt something that would be in violation of Texas law. So, it's, my belief is that this MOU is legal and that what we're proposing here follows the law. And, but if for some reason there was an element in there that, look at the transportation issue, for example, if what's in here for some reason is in violation of law, we couldn't enforce that. The rest of the MOU would still be enforceable. So I think you're safe in voting for this MOU, but my belief is this MOU is the same one we've been passing for some time, and that it's probably in compliance. But nonetheless, we need an MOU with the JJAEP, and I don't think you're running any risk there. We would certainly look and see, is this right or not? If it's not, we just amend the MOU. And we let all the other school districts that are doing the same MOU, benefit from that as well. But I would encourage you all to move forward and pass this, and then let us double check that part of it. But again, we're not going to be able to enforce something that's in here if it's in violation of law.
Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor? That is Ms. Duke, Mr. McDaniel, Ms. Kyer, Ms. Sheffield in favor. Those opposed? Ms. Latham. Thus being said, it is 8:13 p.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Hopefully we'll see you this week. Talk some more. Okay. All right. Take care.
Good job.